Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to be reviewing a magazine, which is this magazine here called Fusion Crash Live, which I believe was kind of a souvenir magazine that was created for visitors of the Crash Live event. And it has a price here of £2. So I'm not sure if they were selling it at the event or if they were giving it away. But it looked pretty cool, so I ordered this from the Fusion Retro Books website from Chris Wilkins, and we're going to take a look at it today. Now, actually, this was kind of a mistake on my part. I didn't realize that this magazine is actually for the 2022 Crash Live event, because as I'm sure you all know, there was a recent 2023 Crash Live event, so that's what I thought I was ordering, but when I received it, I kind of realized that it was for the 2022 event, although it doesn't have the date on the cover here. And I'm not going to read this whole booklet, but I'm just going to give you kind of a taste and an overview of what's in it. So here you can see there is the contents and an editor's note. I am going to read those two to start off with. So and I'm sure you probably are all familiar with the website to order these books and magazines from Chris Wilkins at what's it called? FusionRetroBooks.com. And this is obviously smaller than the normal Crash booklets or the Fusion books or the full-size books on the website. But I thought it would be kind of cool to get a glimpse into what goes on at these Crash Live events, because obviously being in North America, I don't attend these events in person, but it's still interesting to see what goes on at these events. And these Fusion booklets that you can order from the website, I believe they are normally targeted for different systems, like not just Speccy related systems, but Nintendo and I guess and other systems. But this, I guess, since this was developed specifically as a souvenir for the Crash Live event, this one is related, it looks like, specifically entirely to Speccy related goodness. So we're going to go through that, and I'm going to start with just a table of contents here. It says Top 5 ZX Spectrum. These top 5 games we felt were the best of breed during the commercial days of the ZX Spectrum. Magnum Light Phaser. Everyone loves shooting things in the safety of one's own house. Does the phaser fulfill our needs? So that's a light gun that you can use for controlling games. ZX Spectrum Hardware Guide. How many incarnations of this Spectrum hardware can you remember? Here are the usual suspects. Heaven and Hell. For this special issue, we take a look at the ZX Microdrive. Don't Look Back in Anger. Graham Mason looks back at Renegade 3. Did this sequel live up to the name? Aliens Neoplasma Review. One of the most famous film franchises of all times is Alien. Does this game live up to the expectations? And then finally, Sinclair Peripherals. Fusion takes a look at some of the expansions that one could get for the Sinclair machine. And I'm sure all of you people in the UK who grew up with the Speccies are probably familiar with most, if not all, of the information in this booklet, because you grew up with a lot of it. But again, being in North America, this was all new to us and new to me, and a lot of these things described in this booklet I've never seen in person for sure. And so let's take a look at what this booklet has to offer. So like I said, this is for the 22 year Crash Live event, and I kind of got a hint of that when I started reading the editor's note here. And it says, it's been a while since, and this is written by Chris Wilkins, the editor. It says, it's been a while since I had the pleasure of hosting an event. That was way back in 2014 with our second big revival at Dunstall Racecourse in Wolverhampton. And the city names in the UK are so cool. So it says here that the last event was in 2014. So obviously, if this was from the 2023 Crash Live, then the previous one would have been from 2022. Not 2014, so that kind of gave me a hint. And I think it does say probably on the website which year this is for, but I guess I didn't notice that when I was ordering it, but that's okay. So I'm actually glad I ordered this book by mistake, because if it had written 2022 on the cover, I probably wouldn't have bothered ordering it. I would have just ordered the 2023 version. But I'm glad I did order it, because it's a really interesting book. And as you may know from watching my previous videos, I have a ton of books, a ton of magazines. Some of them are right here. And a lot of them are Speccy related. And I think to date I've read probably exactly 0 of them, because they take a long time to read these books, and I've just focused my time on other things. So I guess I'm figuring maybe when I retire I can have time to read all these books and magazines that I've ordered. But this one just happened to be sitting next to my bed, and I thought I would take a flip through it, and it's actually really interesting and well written. And especially being in North America, I wasn't familiar with a lot of this information in this detail. So I'm just going to continue reading the editor's note first of all. It says, "I am foreseeing several proud moments for our brand new Crash Live event. 600 or so Sinclair fans. Surely the largest event of its kind since, well, ever. Gaming legends Malcolm Evans, Clive Townsend, Kevin Toms, and Simon Butler, all under one roof. The Spectrum Next team, pretty much the whole team for this first time, all together at the same location. Over 60 systems to play on, from the early days up to the latest homebrew games. When reading this, possibly post-event, and definitely post-event for me, I am sure you will agree the event is one of a kind. This little magazine is a keepsake to remind you of the day. It also includes the event layout for your reference on the center pages, including trader locations, the times and order of the Q&As, and talks for the day can be found on the turn of this page. I hope you enjoy the event. Please come and say hello and let me know what you think. Thanks goes to Revival Retro Events and Retro Computer Museum for all their help. Editor Chris Wilkins." So let's get into this 2022 Crash Live booklet and see what Crash Live 2022 was all about. On the first page here, we have panel schedule for the different discussions and speeches. Load ZX Spectrum Museum presentation, that was at 10:30 a.m. The Spectrum Show live podcast was at 11:30. Clive Townsend Saboteur series at 12:45. Malcolm Evans 3D Monster Maze and Trash Man was at 2 p.m. At 3:30 there was the Spectrum Next Developers panel. At 4:15 Kevin Toms Football Manager series. And at 5 o'clock Midnight Brew, Alan Turvey, Andy Johns, and Guy Black. So if we flip over the page, here is a review of a game, which I'm sure you're probably all familiar with. This is Daley T. Decathlon. Daley Thompson was a British national hero back in 1984, and this ocean game paid tribute to a good number of the events that he competed in at the Los Angeles Olympics. Interesting. And so I'm sure you all have probably played this game. I've never played it, but it says here it has 110 meter hurdles, javelin, pole vault, discus, shot put, long jump, and high jump. So that looks pretty cool. Maybe I'll play that game one day. And then turning over the page here is the article on, can you see it? Well, there. The top 5 classic games to play on your ZX Spectrum. And I won't go through them all here, but I see one is Back to School. And I am familiar with the School Days game. I actually played School Days back in the day. I was able to get it here in North America, and I played it on my Timex Sinclair 2068 computer using a ROM cartridge that allowed me to play Spectrum games. But I didn't know that there was a sequel to School Days. But obviously there is, and it's called Back to School. A quintessentially British game in every respect. School Days beautifully captured the disenchanted childhood of Spectrum gamers born into the crumbling world of Thatcherite dominion. Its sequel, Back to School, built on these rock-solid foundations while expanding the world of its delinquent main character, Eric. A beautifully constructed farce ensues that takes Eric through every room in the institution. This game makes school look fun. And so it goes through its 5 top games that it considers were Classic to play on the ZX Spectrum. And it's interesting to read about them, and I'm sure you're all familiar with all of these games. And number 1 is Elite, just to give you a little spoiler alert. Let's see what it says. Elite is remembered as the thinking man's game, not just another digital dogfight. All right, and then if we turn over, we have the Magnum Light Phaser. So it's a light gun for playing games. This is the Magnum Light Phaser, one of the most powerful light guns of the 1980s, and it could blow your pixelated opponent's head clean off. Do you feel lucky? Ask Colin Bell. And it talks about this light phaser. It says, it was great fun to play with and made a nice change from waggling your joystick all day. And it also talks about I think this gun included, this gun, this is the package for the gun, the light gun here. Maybe some of you actually own this gun, but this is I guess that was the box, the package that the gun came in. And it came with, apparently, 6 games designed for use with the light gun. And then this booklet, it describes the games that it came with, which is really cool, really interesting. And it says which ones it likes, which ones it doesn't like. And so it's interesting to read about them. Missile Ground Zero, Robot Attack, Rookie, Operation Wolf, Solar Invasion. And it says, as was the case with most peripherals of this type, the lack of support from other software houses meant the lifespan of the Magnum Phaser was all too short-lived. Mastertronic did release several more standalone titles, including Billy the Kid, Bronx Street Cop, F-16 Fighting Falcon, Jungle Warfare, and Supercar Trans Am, sadly none of which set pulses racing or offered up anything new. So it's really interesting to read about this light gun. And the 6th game is this one here called Bullseye. And it says, you can't beat a bit of bully. Bullseye was perhaps the worst of the 6 games included within the pack. Okay. All right, so that's the light gun. That's really interesting to read about. And obviously I never owned one, and I never even knew it existed. So here we have another game review, which you can probably recognize from the screenshot, I'm guessing, is called Auf Wiedersehen Monty. So I've never played this game either. I guess it centers around this Monty character, which I presume is a groundhog. And it says, he's out and about looking for somewhere new to live and has opted for the Greek island of Montos. Okay, so that's an interesting premise. And it's interesting to read about the game as well. So here right in the middle of the book, we have a layout of the Crash Live 2022 floor for the event, and it shows where all the different exhibitors were positioned on the floor. And so that's really cool. Let's see who I would have run into if I had been at this Crash Live 2022. Oh, and it does say 2022 up here, I notice now. So it says it on the inside, but it doesn't say it on the front. And let's see who is at the event. And it's got different locations labeled for different things. I'm not sure what it means, but here's a location, for example, called the early years. And then this one says tournaments and competitions, the classic years, arcade ports, the latter years. And there's a bar. I guess you want to know where that location would be. Fusion Zone 1 and Cafe. So here are some of the exhibitors, and this was Saturday, 26 November 2022. WFC, the venue, Bescott Crescent, Walsall, WS14SA. And there are a list of the exhibitors here. Retro Gear, Crash Magazine. So Crash Magazine had a table here. Midnight Brew Games, Man in a Techno Shed. Man in a Techno Shed, I know that name. That is Richard Faulkner. I'm sure you're all aware of him. He makes music for many of the games that we see on the Specky Next. And I have a couple of them right here. So this Quad Dragon Next, he did some of the music for this. I'm not sure if he did all of the music for it, but some of the music. And Bikers, he also did the music for this game. And this version comes with the soundtrack disc included as well. And of course, you're familiar with this game. I'm sure it's been in the Specky Next community for a while. And I believe I read a message recently from Andy Laird, who created this game, that he is planning to release some more physical versions of Bikers. Now, I don't know when that will be or how many will be available and whether or not they will include this soundtrack disc. I don't know. But that will be cool for any of you who missed out on the original offering of physical Bikers. Then hopefully that will become a reality and some more physical copies will be made available. And so, yeah. So those are just two of the games that Richard worked on. And if you want to sample his music, you can pick up these games. And so he was at this event at table number 4. And that's right in the middle there. And I see across from him is table number 5. And that was an exhibitor called Spectrum Shop, which I haven't heard of. Table 6 is Byte Delight. I've heard of them. I think they sell gadgets and gizmos for Speckies. But I don't believe I've actually ordered anything from them yet. And then across from them, table number 7 is You Make Robots. You Make Robots I am familiar with. I'm sure you're all familiar with as well. That is Ricky El Kasem, if I'm pronouncing that close to correctly. And he actually sent me recently, somewhere, it's hidden behind some junk, but he sent me a new controller that he made for the Mattel Aquarius computer. So he must be a super smart guy and imaginative and resourceful and inventive. He's got all kinds of gadgets available on his website, You Make Robots, and it's amazing all the different things that he develops, and he's still developing new things. So thanks, Ricky, if you're watching this, for sending me that controller. It's amazing, and all of the stuff on his website looks amazing. Especially, I like the there's a Frankenstein something or other on there. I think it's a add-on card for a Specky, and it has a cool little image of Frankenstein on there. So it's always cool to have a Frankenstein-related gadget for your Specky, I think. Although I don't own that one, but it looks neat just from the Frankenstein logo on it. Okay, who else do we have? Sore Thumb Retro. Haven't heard of them. Hidden Chest Gaming. Hidden Chest Gaming I have heard of. They actually have an ad on the back of this magazine. Buy, Sell, Trade. Unit A, Wedgebury Way, Brierley Hill. And they have all kinds of retro goodies and toys and games. It says consoles and home computers, video games, board games, toys and action figures, comics, tabletop games, Pokemon, and trading cards, VHS, DVD, CD, and much, much more, all inside the Hidden Chest. And that is www.hiddenchest.co.uk. So they had a table at Crash Live 2022. Table number 9. Okay, let's see who else we have. Table 10 is White Raven Gaming. Not familiar with them. Table 11 is Sega Mags. 12 is Bagza Games. And table 13 is Get Gaming. So not familiar with those last 4, but it looks like a cool event. All right. Now in the middle of this, well, just past the middle of this magazine, here we have a section called Sinclair Hardware Guide. And as you can see, it describes the different versions of the Spectrum computer that were available, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but I have never actually seen any of these in person here in North America. And it's really cool to read about them. They have the Spectrum 16K, 48K. There's the Spectrum Plus. This is the ZX Spectrum 128, also known as the Toast Rack. And then over the page, they have the ZX Spectrum Plus 2A, and then the Plus 2B. And then down here, we have the Spectrum Plus 3. And over here, there's something called the Spectrum Vega and Vega Plus. So I knew that they had 2 different versions of the Plus 2, the gray one and the black one. And here's the gray one and here's the black one. The gray one is Plus 2A, the black one is Plus 2B. And I don't know what the difference is between them. I heard that the gray one is the more desirable one to own. I'm not sure exactly why. maybe it's more compatible with more games or something. I'm not sure exactly, but I think I heard that the gray one is more desirable for some reason. And I didn't realize that they came out so far apart. The Spectrum 2A was released in 1987, and the Spectrum 2 Plus 2B was released in 1989, so they're 2 years apart. And I'm just going to read the description for the Plus 2B. It says, unlike the gray ZX Spectrum Plus 2A, the Spectrum Plus 2B came in a black Spectrum 2 Plus case. One of the few differences between the Plus 2A and the Plus 2B is that the manufacturing location changed from Taiwan to China, as well as the model being fitted with a different motherboard. The Plus 2B would be the final Spectrum released by Amstrad, with production ending in 1992. And another thing I found interesting is that the Plus 3, which I'm sure you're aware has the built-in floppy drive, although the disk size is 3 inches instead of the standard 3.5 inches. And it says here that that size was found on the Amstrad CPC computer as well. And it says this model also had issues with sound due to design flaws in its circuitry, resulting in heavily distorted audio. So I would have thought, I assume that the Plus 3 was released after the Plus 2 models because it has a floppy drive, which I would have thought is an advancement over the data cassette, or the data quarter as they're called here. But it was actually released in 1987, the same year as the Spectrum Plus 2A. And then 2 years later, they released the Plus 2B, which went back to the tape deck. So I'm curious to know why they released a Plus 2B at all, unless it's just strictly to save money by redesigning it with a different motherboard and having it built in China instead of Taiwan. So that was interesting, I found. And then down here is a device called the ZX Spectrum Vega Plus. And apologies, my camera doesn't like to autofocus. So, well, it doesn't autofocus. So I'm going to manually focus it just so you can at least have a glimpse of something in this magazine. A little bit more clear. So here we have the Spectrum Vega and Vega Plus. Not a home computer, but instead a TV plug-and-play game developed by Retro Computers Limited. The ZX Spectrum Vega was the result of a successful crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo back in 2014, with Sir Clive Sinclair himself supposedly investing in the project. So I wasn't familiar with this device, but it says here the Vega came with 1,000 Spectrum games installed, but also featured a micro SD card slot for users to load other games, as well as being able to save their progress each. It's kind of difficult to read because the text flows from one side of the picture over to the other, and so normally I would expect to just read down one side and then read down the other side, but you have to actually go back and forth to match up these sentences here. So being able to save their progress in each game. The system wasn't perfect, and it was apparent that Retro Computers had cut corners with the design, which overall felt cheap, made of flimsy plastic with awkward, stiff buttons. The system also failed to come with a power cable or a SCART lead, something that irritated me when I first purchased one. But in spite of its shortcomings, fun could definitely be had with some of the choice offerings of games featured on the system. And it was the first official product to bear the Sinclair ZX Spectrum name in years, something I personally found exciting in itself. Following the success of the Vega, Retro Computers Limited decided to follow up with a handheld version, the ZX Spectrum Vega Plus, again preloaded with 1,000 games, but with the benefit of being able to play them on the go. This has yet to appear. Yeah, so I think there was some issue with that Vega Plus device. I don't know if it never came out or if it came out in limited quantities or what, but I think I heard something about that, but I've never, of course, seen one in person. But it looks interesting. Okay, so over the page here we have, looks like we have an ad for bags, custom gaming bags by Otter and Scott. Bags of Games. at Crash 2022. I guess they make bags for games. And here we have an article titled Heaven and Hell. And this one is talking about the microdrive. It says Alan Hammerton discusses the pros and cons of gaming hardware, old and new. And it looks like they're only discussing just this one piece of hardware, the microdrive. It says, cast your mind back to the early days of the ZX Spectrum when cassettes were the main way that software was distributed. We are all aware of just how long it took a game or program to load from the cassette, as well as the fun, or stress in brackets it says here, it could provide when it did not work. So I guess the blue part is the good features of the device they're talking about. And then the red, I guess, is the hell. So the heaven is the blue and the hell is the red. And in the hell part, it starts off, Dear Lord, where do I begin? You received your new microdrive for Christmas in 1983. Your first challenge was to find some microdrive cartridges that you could buy for it. And at £4.95, you had to have deep pockets. And then it talks about how the reliability of the microdrive cartridges wasn't that great. Said, assuming the loop of tape inside does not snap due to its stretching when used. The QL microdrive, because the QL computer obviously used microdrives, it has built-in microdrive cartridge slots as well. And it says here the QL microdrive at least had modifications to put less strain on the tape. Don't think you can use a cartridge formatted on a QL microdrive on the microdrive attached to your Spectrum. It just won't work. So interesting. It's interesting to read all these details about these accessories for the Specky computers. And over, we now have a game review of Renegade 3. And I've never played this game either. And down here it has a picture of a karate guy kicking a mummy, and it looks like a little robot is sneaking up behind him here. And the caption says, below, fighting mummies and robots and cavemen. Different, it says. Okay, so it talks about Renegade 3 here. It says Renegade 3 pits the player against not only thugs and gangsters, but also against medieval knights and cavemen. Interesting. With his girlfriend taken captive by time-traveling villains from the future, the hero must travel back through time, battling each zone's inhabitants in order to rescue her once more. The things we do for love. And then it says, I won't read the whole review, but it says, it plays as ludicrously as it sounds. Yet I, like many, was suckered in by the reviews. Okay, interesting. It looks neat, though. If you look at the screenshot here, the graphics look really cool. Little cave background there. And it shows you the insert card that came with the tape. So interesting. The full cassette inlay of Renegade 3. And this picture up here with the screenshot is titled, or captioned, a very detailed urban, cave-dwelling environment. So it looks interesting. It looks like a game that I would have been interested to play, although it doesn't sound like it got a very good review. But I'll leave that for you to read if you want. And on our next page here, we have another game review of Aliens Neoplasma, which also looks cool. You can see the screenshots here. And this one, I'm guessing this game is for the regular Specky, but there is also a Specky Next version of Aliens Neoplasma, and there's videos on YouTube you can watch about that. And it says, a very colorful depiction of this dark game. This is this introduction screen for the game. And it looks like they liked it because they gave it a review. I guess this is the review result, Fusion Reaction 10. I'm guessing that's like a crash smash in Fusion talk. It says, gorgeous settings that even Mr. Geiger would love. Aliens Neoplasma has been constructed with a great deal of care and admiration for the source material. Its creators are ardent fans of all the films, and as you might expect, the game is exceptionally tough, with the aliens providing a stiff challenge, even for the well-armed lead character. Given that one slip or pause can result in death for our lone medical technician. And then it talks about the game and the features of the game. Really cool. I haven't actually played that game yet, but I have watched the videos and the graphics look really neat. And then the last section here, it's really interesting to read all this stuff that I never really knew about back in the day. This one is titled Sinclair ZX Spectrum Peripherals, A Potted History. Now, I don't know what that means, a potted history. I guess that's a British thing. Not sure, is potted good or bad? So let's see what a potted history of peripherals is about. And here down at the bottom, it says, codenamed the ZX82, the ZX Spectrum 16K 48K was officially launched in 1982 and marked the next step in the evolution of the Sinclair home micro range. Considerably more advanced than its predecessor, the ZX81. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't realize that it was called the ZX, or codenamed the ZX82. Interesting. It says, come join me, Colin Bell, as we take a look back at some of the peripheral devices on offer for our beloved Specky. And then it talks about the tape recorder. There you can see there's a tape recorder and a printer on this first inside page here. Which you might think, what's interesting to read about a tape recorder? Everyone knows how a tape recorder works, but a lot of youngsters these days probably have never used a tape recorder like that. And it's interesting to just read about it anyway. Connecting one to your ZX Spectrum meant you could save and load data onto the cassette. All software houses of the time used cassettes as a cheap means of distributing their latest software releases. Yep, and I've loaded many a cassette. ZX printer, year of release 1981. Interesting to read about the printer. It says it was released at £49.95. To print characters, two small styluses moved back and forth along a belt, and by passing an electric charge through them, they would in turn burn away the aluminum coating, revealing the black paper underneath in the shape of the desired character. It says you had to be careful when handling, as the aluminum coating was extremely sensitive, making it very easy to leave fingerprints all over your printout. And I have seen, a friend of mine did have this printer, or one of these Sinclair printers, and I remember those, I think I actually have a printout, one printout from a printer like this in my collection here somewhere. And then finally on the last 2 pages, we have 4 more devices here. This is the ZX Interface 1. Down here is the ZX Micro Drive. And then up here is the Rotronics Wafa Drive. And then down here is the Kurra Speech. So the Interface 1, I've never seen any of these things in person, but it's interesting to read about them. Interface 1, by far one of the ZX Spectrum's more interesting peripheral devices. The ZX Interface 1 was initially designed for use as a local area network interface. Interesting. It also housed a socket for connecting the ZX Microdrive mass storage device, and featured a standard RS-232 socket for connecting up to modems and printers. I didn't realize that Spectrums were ever connected over a local area network. It says, all in all, the interface allowed for the connection of up to a whopping 64 ZX Spectrums over a single network, which was aptly named ZXNet. It says you were also able to appoint one of the networked Spectrums as a dedicated server, meaning you could output tasks such as printing and therefore only require one printer for many computers. Cool. Despite all its epic networking capabilities, however, the ZX Interface 1 was most commonly used for its microdrive feature. And then here there's an article about the microdrive, which says in order to use it, you needed the ZX Interface 1, and it said the data cartridges themselves suffered from low speed and poor reliability due to the magnetic tape stretching during use, which eventually led to data being unreadable over time. And then it says the micro drive was ignored by the software manufacturers. So I guess that doesn't help if the game developers don't publish their games on the media that this thing uses. Then here we have a device I've never heard of before, the Rotronics Wafa drive. Right here. Year of release 1984. The Wafa drive from Rotronics was an interface device intended to compete with Sinclair's ZX Interface 1 and the microdrive system. The Wafa drive had two internal built-in mass storage tape drives, with the added bonus of still being able to use additional external cartridges for more storage. The internal tape drive ran at two speeds, high speed for searching through the tape catalog, and low speed for the actual data transfer. Interesting. Then it talks about the different sizes of the different cartridges you could get. The larger the cartridge, the longer it took to access due to the length of the magnetic tape required, and although being far faster than cassette, the Wafa drive was still slower than the ZX microdrive. And then finally down at the bottom here, there is the Kurra micro speech. I guess it's micro speech. It has a little mu symbol in front of the speech. So I guess this is called Kurra micro speech. Year of release 1984. And it says it attempts to recreate a human-like voice, which sounds far more like a Doctor Who Dalek. I don't watch Doctor Who, so I know the Dalek is a little robot thing, or is it pronounced Dalek? I'm not sure. Through the use of phonetic descriptions of letters and words. It says several commercial game releases supported the device, such as Lunar Jetman, 3D Monster Chase, and Blastermind, to name but a few. But don't try to use the unit with a non-compatible game, as all you'll succeed in doing is crashing the entire system. Okay. Interesting. It says, rather a remarkable accomplishment from British computer manufacturer Kurra here, when you consider that the earlier ZX Spectrum 16K 48K has never been known for its sound quality. And it says the unit also acted like a mini sound amplifier, outputting sound directly through your television loudspeaker, which may not sound like much, but was a vast improvement on the internal Specky speaker. So really interesting to read about all these gadgets and gizmos and games, and to see the layout of the floor of Crash Live 2022. So this magazine is not very expensive to purchase. I'm not sure how much it is in pounds. I think it's $3 or $4, somewhere in that range. So it's a fairly small magazine, but it's really interesting. It's like, for me, it's an interesting magazine to read from cover to cover. So I'm glad I mistakenly ordered this thing, and I recommend it if you're not familiar with this magazine and that type of information sounds interesting for you to read. Then head over to fusionretrobooks.com, and I expect they probably still have some in stock, at least at the time of this recording, which is December 2023. And I did also order the 2023 version of this booklet, so that's on the way, and I'm looking forward to reading that as well. So there you go, a little review of the Fusion Crash Live booklet. Actually, another kind of funny note is that when I was going through my collection of Crash, well, I have a collection of different Crash magazines and different booklets that I received in my orders, and I noticed here that I actually already owned this booklet. I either must have ordered it previously, or maybe just came as a free promo with one of my other orders. I don't know, but so now I have two copies of it. So it's an interesting booklet. And one other little interesting thing I want to point out is that I noticed the little snowman picture here on the front is also used in this Crash Annual 2024, which I'm not going to cover this book in this video, but I just received this Crash Annual 2024 as well from Fusion Retro Books, and so I haven't even read this one yet. I'm looking forward to reading it. I'll just give you a quick flip through. It's full of big glossy pages, as all the very high quality Crash books are. Lots of cool stuff there waiting for me to read. What's next? What is next? That Above, Simon Butler, pushing the Pixel since 1983. Interesting. Lots of cool articles. Crash Live. Oh, it's Crash Live right there. Crash Live 2022. Okay, so I guess there's some more interesting information for me waiting for me to read about Crash Live 2022. Cool. I didn't even know that was in here. Oh, anyway, but what I wanted to show you was that I noticed Mr. Snowman makes another appearance here. So Mr. Snowman is now famous. Okay, so the Crash Live booklet, I believe, is still available on the Fusion Retro Books website. The Crash Annual 2024, the last time I checked, which was today, it was sold out in this A4 or A5. I think this is A4. Anyway, this size is sold out at the moment. I'm not sure if it's going to come back in stock, but the smaller version, which I think is the A5 version, is available as of today. So, yeah, so that's waiting for me to read. And there we go. There's a little tour of the Fusion Crash Live booklet. I'm really impressed with it. I recommend it if you're interested in some specky goodness. You want to read about the different hardware models and some games and whatnot. Feel free to go pick it up. And that's it for today. So, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.